Already. We started. Gonna start a little early so we have some time to let people get in the room. If you're listening to the replay, you can go ahead and fast forward a little bit. I'll go ahead and give a little introduction of myself in case you are new to the space, in case you're listening to the replay, to avoid some of the silence, the awkwardness. My name is Anjulique, also known as Anjulique the Artist. I am an expressionist, a spiritual life coach, and a youth mental wellness advocate. And that last little bit is what sparked this specific room. Hey, Fabian. Hey, Sarah. I asked Leah to join me on this adventure because she has expertise in sexual childhood trauma. And I know that sometimes in these spaces, when we're talking about the teen years, when teens are sharing their experiences, when anyone is sharing their experience, um, sometimes tough things come up. Sometimes that trauma comes forward. So I wanted to make sure I have somebody in the space to help navigate. But as far as what I do, like I said, I'm a youth mental wellness advocate, and I wanted to create the space to expand on the conversation of supporting teens. So this space is for teens to come and express themselves, to learn from, to grow from, to hear the experience of others. Um, it's also a space for people to, adult people, to share their experience, so that the young people can learn from them as well. Because I feel like personally, one of the ways I've grown the most as a human being is through other people's stories and sharing experiences and understanding that I'm not alone in this space on this life journey. So that's kind of what this room is about in general. And today I wanted to touch on the topic of the culture of being a teen. So last week, Mick dropped some really awesome bombs like he typically does. I hope he pops in the room later or soon. But he brought up um, the truth. I guess there really is no other way to say it. He brought up the truth that, oh, there you go, Mick. Hey, Mick. Hey, Richard. Um, that being a teen is kind of a new thing, and it shifts depending on what area of the world you're in, what time period you grew up as a teen. It's just kind of been shifting as humanity shifts. And when people were growing up in like the era of the Victorian age, 13, you're an adult. You feel me? And now there are 16-year-olds who have whole businesses and things, but they're still seen as minors, as children, and they're living at their parents' house. And they like it that way. So I wanted to just kind of expand on that because I felt like that was such an interesting aspect of humanity. And I felt like it would bring forth a lot of powerful conversation and storytelling, story sharing today on the Teen Years Room. Hello, Darren. Hello, Vanessa. Hello, Jess. Isam, Maria. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We got something it's popping today. I'm excited. But yeah, Leah, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself before we get really rolling into the conversation, by all means.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Anjulique. And thanks everybody for joining us. This is an awesome space that we're creating because as I always speak to when we have this conversation, the teen years are so imperative because it is that transition from being a child into being an adult. And as you were mentioning how Mick suggested last week that we have created sort of the teen years to enable that transition and to support that transition and to honor that transition of everything that's going on in the body, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, everything. And so we've created the teen space for that transition. So meaning that it's a very imperative time for teens to have support and be able to express themselves freely. And I know you had talked about speaking to that point in today's room as well, the freedom of expression, how many of us coming from our trauma backgrounds, we lacked that freedom of expression, or we had been silenced from a very early stage in our life. And so to express ourselves freely was either difficult, or we didn't do it, or we did it in a way that was like rebellious. So I think these conversations are important to talk about this transition period for humans from the child stage of their life cycle into the adult stage of their life cycle. And all that happens in that particular stage is really important to focus on and to, as I mentioned before, support and provide resources around and create spaces where we can have conversations like these. So I'm very much looking forward to it. Anjulique, thank you for bringing me into this conversation so that we can hold this room. And yeah, we'd love to have anybody who wants to come up and join us and speak about that to come up. Heather, it's so good to see you, girl. So Anjulique, I'll pass back to you for however you want to take it from here.
Awesome. And I'm going to make you a moderator again. Thought that was just like an ongoing thing, but I guess I'll figure that out later. But jumping into this conversation, hello everybody that hopped in. I saw Joynetti hopped in. Hey, hey, girl. Being a teen, expressing yourself, like Leah mentioned, that can be challenging when you're a young person, and that comes in a lot of cultures where the child is seen as obedient to the parent. They're only supposed to listen, be seen and not heard, and occasionally not seen when they don't want to be seen, when parents don't want you to be seen, when there's grown folk talk. I've definitely heard that more than once in my growing up years. And across different cultures, even as you become older, there's still this idea that you aren't supposed to fully express yourself to your elders. Like if they do something that makes you uncomfortable, or they do something that makes your children uncomfortable, even. You're an adult, you have a whole family and a marriage and everything. You're not able to fully express yourself. And I think a lot of people carry that from their childhood into the adulthood as they grow, because it's just, you were a child, they expected you to not speak back, and now you're an adult, so why would I speak back if that's not a muscle that I've built, right? And so with a form of expression and speaking, sometimes that gets a little suppressed, or a lot of suppressed. But then there are other forms of expression, such as the way you do your hair, or the way that you dress, or the type of music that you listen to, the car that you drive. And we find different ways of learning to express ourselves in that way as well. And then in the teen years, things can get really fun. I'll say it that way. As we start experimenting with our hair, with our wardrobe. I went to private school my entire young adult life. Up until I went to college, I went to a public college. But I had to wear a uniform, so it wasn't too much room for expression there. But everybody kind of had their own little thing, the way they wear their sweaters or their khakis or whatever. There was a little flair there. But I know, like in public schools, when you're able to dress yourself in high school, that's like a really big thing. And as the culture shifts and changes, and things like music videos got more popular, or different hairstyles got more popular, that kind of shifts with the culture how you want to express yourself. And then there's also the idea of being counterculture. So you're like, everybody's dyeing their hair blonde. I'm going to be a redhead. Like there's so many different flavors and aspects that go along with being a teen and shifting with the culture. So I really wanted to open up the floor to this conversation just to see what came up. So I'll just stop talking for now, pass it over to Leah to see if she has anything to say, and then we can go on over to Heather, see what she has. Leah?
Yes, I absolutely have a lot to say on it. When I saw the conversation, I wanted to speak to the team.
You're a little choppy, Leah.
Oh, let me move to a different spot. So I'm raising, my two oldest are now teens. I have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old. And so I'm trying to raise them as a conscious parent. And as a conscious parent, I allow my children the freedom to express themselves. And I think that is, such a beautiful thing. But for me as the mom, it can definitely be triggering as I'm still on my healing journey, because that means they're able to tell me when they're upset with me over something, or they're able to share their opinion with me, even if it's hurtful to me, or, they're able to express their emotions, even if it's anger. We talked about that last week. And sometimes that can be very triggering to me. So I was excited for this conversation to just kind of like talk about it and hear what everybody else has to say in regards to either their teenager that they're raising or remembering what it was like to be a teen. Because I remember, growing up in that very suppressed, I could only I had to be the good girl and express only what was appropriate or acceptable, or expected. And so I did, go through like the rebellious stage, but that was, it's very different from the environment that I'm creating for my children. So as the parent trying to navigate, when you have children who are free to express themselves, whatever that looks like, the makeup they want to wear, the clothes they want to wear, how they want to get their hair done, I allow my children to make those decisions, but it is sometimes hard for me. So that's where I'm at with it. And I'm excited to hear from anyone else who wants to share. I'm excited to have Heather on the stage. So Anjulique, do you want to pass to Heather, or did you have something you wanted to comment?
No, you can go ahead, Heather. Excited to hear what you have.
And be problematic in their current life before they even become adults, then of course we're setting them up for failure. We're not allowing them to learn how to fail and bounce back. So anyway, talked long enough, and this is a great room and a great topic. So I yield the mic.
Thank you, Sarah. And I'm glad that you came on the stage. I was a little wary. I was like, it was getting kind of packed up here. But we'll see how the conversation goes. And I know you always have something super valuable to share. So I just want to first say thank you for teaching your children the freedom of expression, and just kind of leave it there. Actually, I was going to say that's the first thing, but that's what I'm going to leave it at, because again, I want to respect everyone's time here. So thank you for teaching your children the freedom of expression and guiding that expression, because in the adult world, if you talk to somebody out of pocket, there are also consequences. So soft place to land, soft place to practice. And I feel like our next conversation should definitely be about creating a world for children, because that conversation was kind of threading through here. And I really feel like we can unpack that more when we have the time next week. So make sure you join us next week here in the Inner Creator Conversation House. And look out for the post for me and Leah for the links and everything. But I'm going to pass it over to Leah to see if she has any closing words. Leah?
Yes, I do. Darren, I wanted to thank you for coming up and sharing. What stood out to me in regards to your share is the realization that when your aunt was pregnant, she was sent off to a place because that's what was expected of the society that they lived in. this really big event, this life-changing event, this something that will impact your life forever, and it has a major impact on your body. That your aunt was not included in that decision. Neither were her parents. Neither was whoever fathered that child, I'm sure. And it was just expected that, okay, now you go, and that's, again, this weaved thread of conversation around living in a man-made world, where it's all about control and power. It's frustrating to me to hear that, but that happens so often, that the person whose life is most impacted and changing the most has no say in the decision that is being made on their behalf. And so I just wanted to call that out, because that's what happens in worlds that are built for adults. Those type of things happen in man-made systems, so thank you so much, Darren, for sharing vulnerably, and always sharing the journey that you're on, and sharing vulnerably, so that we can all experience it with you, and support you through it. So I'm happy that you spent that time there and got what you needed from that particular visit, and here we go, continuing on this healing journey, right? Sarah, I want to say, girl, it's so good to hear your voice. I feel like we haven't been in the same space for a little bit, because I know a lot of big changes are happening at your house with the kids going back to school and all of these things. And but anyways, I'm happy you were here, and I'm glad you came up to share. I'm always happy to extend my time to hold these spaces and these conversations, because it's important to what we share here, and talking about the way that you are raising these incredible developing beings, and that they're some of the most awesome people and some of your favorite people on the planet. I love hearing parents speak about their teens in that way, their teenagers in that way, because most of the time we hear the opposite. But they're causing me this headache, and I don't know what to do with them, and oh my gosh, my mom said, I can't wait for you to have kids, and then you'll see what it's like. I hate that saying, but we've all heard it. And I think for a while I even used that term in my home. I don't do it now, obviously, but so it's wonderful to hear the opposite, that these years that are some of the most difficult possibly for a parent are the ones that you're actually getting the most from. And if we're open and conscious to it, we can get so much from it, because our children are our greatest teachers. They help us reach new levels of our own healing if we're open to it. And willing to give them the freedom of expression, because it is very triggering. You mentioned that as well, and I talked about that a little bit at my share in the beginning of the room, that giving our children what we so desperately wish we had, it can be very triggering to our younger self. It's like, wait a minute, this is so unfair. And so it's important that we continue doing the work of reparenting ourselves and maintaining that connection with our younger self, who may feel very left out or frustrated or sad or mad about the life that we are creating for our own teens. And then the last thing I'll share is that I remember being in therapy with my children. We've all had years of therapy, and this was when my son was coming into his teen years, and I was sharing something with her, and she said, you think that a child needs you, when they're born and when they're a toddler. And she said, but they need you more when they're a teenager. And that always stood out to me, that conversation that I had with her. They may not say that they need you, and they may actually do the opposite. Get out of my room, leave me alone, or whatever. But they need you more at that stage, because they're looking for that guidance and that soft place to land when they make mistakes about figuring out how to live in this world for adults, and they're coming into that, this very a major transitional part of their life. They need us even more. So I'm glad you're there for your children, and giving that example to our community of what that looks like when we give our children autonomy from the very first start of life. So it's definitely a different style of parenting, but one that I hope we are shifting towards. So thank you so much, Darren, Sarah, Joy, Nettie, Nick, Heather, and Angelique, of course, for holding the space. I will pause my mic.
Wow, beautiful. I'm not gonna dive into it too much because there is next week.
And the
So
week
make sure
after
you
and the
join
week
us.
after. We're going to be here.
And every Monday here on Inner Creator Conversations at 12 p.m. Central Time, 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and then we got the 10 and the 1 on the coast. So definitely make sure you have it in your calendar, you have it saved, because I really am enjoying these conversations. And I believe they're going to be really impactful, that they're already so impactful because they're helping me unpack a lot. They're helping people on the stage unpack a lot. And I'm sure the people in the audience are also learning. And as we've been mentioning, the more conscious adults are, the better experience the children have and the better people. I mean, I don't want to say better, but the kinder, more compassionate, more aware, more sensitive they become as adults. And we need that in the world. Um, so I'll just wrap that there, put that nice little bow on it. We need more compassionate, kind, sensitive people in the world. So thank you for being here in the space and doing the work, contributing to the conversation. But yeah, I will go ahead and close it out. Make sure you join us next week for another juicy conversation. And I'll close the room in a count of 5. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Adios.